So, is WoW worth it in 2026? Well, I'm not going to answer that question for you, but I'm going to talk about my own experience with the game, the new features that are coming, and you're probably going to be able to answer that question for yourself, whether you're a new player or a returning player. This is the video for you. My name's Morg, and this channel is dedicated to help all of you new players and returning players to figure out if the game that I'm talking about is the right pick for you this year. So I decided to make a WoW video because I've been a WoW player for years and I really like the game. I started playing like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I started in the Dragonflight expansion, which was kind of like one expansion that brought a lot of significant changes to the game. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it fixed a lot of the issues that it had before, and some of the philosophies that they applied in that expansion are still present in today's version of the game. So in order to make that decision, is this game worth it for me today, I'm going to talk a little bit about, the pre-patch, the upcoming expansion, and my personal story with the game. So there's a new expansion coming. Its name is Midnight. The current expansion is called The War Within. And I wouldn't say that The War Within was the best expansion that I've played. I played it from start to finish. I just took like 2 week break. I think I have a pretty good idea of if it was a good expansion or not. It definitely introduced very interesting changes and very interesting systems such as, delves and warbands. And those changes were amazing. They definitely made the player experience overall better. But I have some comments about it, maybe lore-wise, because remember, this is a fantasy game. This is an adventure game. A lot of players come to it or stay because this is basically a story that's being told and you're one of the characters, like kind of like D&D. You have your own story with the game and you have your own opinions about the story, and I think the story has been a mess lately, but there's good news. Back when they were developing The War Within, there was kind of like a change in the directive, and basically one of the OG game designers, Chris Metzen, came back. He basically left the company because he felt like he wasn't being fulfilled enough when he was working in WoW. He was like suffering from anxiety attacks and so on and so forth. And he came back and he decided to tell the biggest story that WoW has ever told. He calls it the World Soul Saga. Basically, look at it like an Avengers type of thing. So every story that was once told is connected, and he's trying to tie some loose ends that were left there expansions ago, and he's trying to bring everything together, because the stories before were like isolated, like an expansion came out and it told the story and then you'd never heard about that story again, or maybe some elements, but the story never continued. So in the World Soul Saga, the next expansions, The War Within and then Midnight and then The Last Titan, were all announced, and they're going to tell a very particular story, and I'm very excited about it. But the point is, back when they were developing The War Within, it was already done. So when Chris Metzen came around, they already had the expansion, so there were a lot of plot points that they had to remove or not explore because they're going to tell a different story now. That was going to be like a one-thing expansion, and they were going to just tell some stories. But now, if they told those stories in that way, then the World Soul Saga wouldn't make sense. So they had to remove them or put them on hold. So if you played The War Within, you're going to feel like there were some parts of the game that weren't explored or that weren't explained. But they're coming in Midnight and they're coming in The Last Titan. So it's a great moment lore-wise to join the game because it's going to be an amazing story, and it's already an amazing story. Like the last patches that are kind of connecting The War Within with Midnight are amazing. And Midnight was already announced. The cinematic is great, and we all have a lot of expectations about it. Now, moving on to, the features that are coming. I'm not going to talk about every single feature because it's going to be a very long video, and it's already a very long video. But I will talk about the things that I thought were most relevant. The first one is Blizzard is trying to reduce the use of add-ons. I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about that later in the video, but I just want to tell you that the game itself should have enough tools and enough features to let me play it. Because when I have to download a third-party software in order to play one game, then it loses its meaning. And maybe you could say, well, those things are not essential for the experience of the game. Well, yeah, but player base has changed a lot. When you started playing WoW back in 2004, the philosophy of the game was very different and players were very different. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. That is a very good change. The removal of most add-ons, if not all of them. The second change I feel is very positive is that they're simplifying a lot of the classes. So the more expansions that came out, the more complicated was it to play certain classes because you got new skills, new abilities, and then you had 30 buttons in your action bars, and then you had to time them and include them in your rotation, and they became too complicated. So basically, what they did is they purged all of those useless or maybe not relevant abilities, and now you can focus more on your role and the way you want to play the game. So if you want to deal damage, if you want to heal, if you want to tank, you have maybe smaller set of abilities, but overall more meaningful, which is, in my opinion, very good philosophy for a game developer to have, that lets you pay more attention to the world around you rather than just looking at your action bars and pressing buttons for 30 minutes. So I'm going to take some time to talk about the story of the game and my story in it. I think I said that I started playing in Dragonflight. I actually started playing in Wrath of the Lich King, but after Mists of Pandaria, I took a break and I came back in Dragonflight. The game, the base edition called Vanilla, that's how they call it, started in 2004, and it was a worldwide phenomenon. There wasn't any game like it, and there were a lot of adventures and open world to explore, new classes, new powers, and basically everything was unknown. The game was more difficult. There wasn't any flying in it, so you had to walk or run to dungeons, and the path was very dangerous, so you needed a group to survive it. And dungeons were very difficult at that time, so you needed a lot of cooperation, a lot of strategy. So the social element was very well developed at that time. But as expansions came out, the Burning Crusade, which was the first expansion of the game, introduced a lot of the systems that people loved, and they introduced new races, new stories, and it was basically the game in space, in another world, and it was very exciting. Then Wrath of the Lich King came out, and that's what people consider the end of the classic experience, because after that expansion, the player base started to decline, and they changed a lot of the things that the old school players appreciated. Long story short, they revamped the whole new player experience. They made all of those quests new. They revamped the world. They made it look prettier. The theme was a cataclysm, so basically the world changed a lot. A lot of the areas were changed. A lot of the old quests were lost, and that was something that people didn't appreciate. But I think that it was due an update, to be honest. I don't think that a lot of the things that they've done are bad, but you have to understand they were trying to balance, new player experiences with pleasing old school players, because remember, the pace of the game was very slow in vanilla. But naturally, if vanilla is the only content available, then you would just go through it at your own pace. But then the Burning Crusade comes out, and everyone's playing the new content. Everyone's in Outland, which was the name of the planet that was unlocked. And people just wanted to level as fast as they could to get to that content. And then when Wrath of the Lich King came out, you would try to level even faster. So I can't blame people for trying to speed up the pace of the game. As that happened, the requirements of casual players changed. And it wasn't just like, I'm going to spend 2 months leveling my character and just enjoying the world. Everyone knows the world now. Everyone knows the quests. You have all of the walkthroughs and tutorials on YouTube. Now, I want something new, so I want to reach the end game as fast as I can. And that is one of the problems in retail WoW. It's that leveling doesn't make any sense right now. I think that it's completely unnecessary because it's so fast. I think it doesn't make any sense. You don't even have time to read the abilities that you gain throughout the levels. So basically, you could just get from 1 to 80 in a day tops if you really play and use the dungeon finder. And if it's like time walking week, it's going to be even faster. So I don't see the point in leveling anymore. Leveling should be slower and should be more appreciated, and you should have things to do that impact the end game while you're leveling. That would make sense. But I just don't think they have found the right balance. After Wrath of the Lich King, I played Cataclysm and I played a little bit of Mists of Pandaria. I wouldn't say those were bad expansions, but a lot of people stopped playing the game because they removed the things that they loved about it. So the developers eventually decided to release a version of the game that was unaltered. It was called Classic WoW, and it started with the base edition, the vanilla edition, and it has rotated through the years through all of the expansions. And now they started a new rotation in anniversary servers. So the Burning Crusade is coming out again for the second time. So I think they've done a good job in pleasing a lot of people. So the people that prefer the classic experience can just join those servers and live through the experience again, and the slow grind, and the dungeons that they know and love, and the aesthetic of the world. And I think retail has its own charm, but it's very different than classic. Basically, one of the positive changes that they made on retail is that they added content that can be infinitely scaled up on difficulty, so you'll never run out of challenges to beat. Also, mythic raiding, which is the highest difficulty of raiding. Remember, raiding is just a bigger group, like 10 to 30 people. That is very challenging. If you're a mythic raider and you beat the game, you beat the game basically. If you do mythic raiding and you beat the end boss, that's you beat the game. But not a lot of people reach that point, and it's very fun to get a group, get a guild, and just give it a shot. A lot of people get frustrated, but then again, you have a lot of ways to enjoy the game. You have Mythic Plus, you have Mythic Rating, you have Heroic Rating if you don't want to get to Mythic, and Heroic Rating is a lot more accessible. You also have PvP, now you have housing, so there's a lot of things that you can do in the game. You can potentially enjoy it in any way you can. Personally, I love the profession system, and I'm probably going to make a lot of tutorials about that because it's not an approachable system right now. And I think that if you take advantage of it for midnight, you're going to make a bunch of gold, or you're going to feel like you're ahead of everyone else, truly. So we're back at it again. We are in the World of Warcraft pre-patch before midnight expansion, and I'm really excited. Well, this part of the video is meant to show you what the logging screen could look like once you spend some couple of months, couple of weeks, couple of days playing. You're going to create a bunch of characters because this game is very friendly with alternate characters or secondary characters because of the warband feature. Basically, all of your characters are part of something called a warband. What that does is it gives benefits to all of your characters. If you complete an objective or you unlock a feature with one of the characters, every other character is going to have the features unlocked as well. So that's very fun, and it's a very welcome change that they did at the beginning of the expansion. So you bought the game and then you want to create a character. Maybe you're just trying the game through the first 20 levels for free, that you can do that too. So you're going to go ahead and create a character, and this is what it's going to look like. Basically, you have some races on the left and the right, and you have some classes at the bottom of the screen. I'd say that the most important thing for you to pick is your class based on, your favorite class fantasy. If you play D&D, if you play Diablo or a game like that, then you are going to have preference between, fighting in close ranges, or having a very heavy armor, or maybe casting spells from a distance, and maybe the race that you want to pick is a human, or maybe you're more like an orc or an elf, an undead warrior. Maybe you could be a Draenei or a dwarf. There are a bunch of choices to make. So I recommend you to create like 2 or 3 characters with different combinations. And if you're a casual player, you could just do that with whatever class, race, combo you want. If you're a hardcore player or you want to get to that point, I recommend you to go to wowhead.com and just see what the most popular classes are, if that's what you're interested in. I'm going to be completely honest with you. The dwarf race is overpowered because they have a passive that is like a defensive that is the best in the game. I don't know if they're going to change that, or if they have changed it in this pre-patch, because I haven't checked. But you can right click this and then you see the racial traits. That didn't used to matter before because they balanced a lot of the like racial traits, and they made picking a race less important. But it's the dwarves, man. Like the dwarves have this defensive that is like the best in the game, and also like the Magar orcs, which is an allied race. They have a great cooldown that boosts their damage in an incredible way. So there are some races that will give you a little bit of an advantage, but in a DPS standpoint, it's going to be like a very small advantage. And on a defensive standpoint, that is like ridiculous. So if you like the dwarf aesthetic and the world and their city, I recommend you to pick a dwarf with whatever class they have available, which is almost all of them. So before continuing, I just want to highlight two of the most powerful classes in the game. One of them is the Death Knight. It's the first hero class. It came out a bunch of expansions ago, and it's always very fun to play. You start in, I think, level 10, and depending on your race, you start like with a campaign that takes you back to the origins of the class, and it's very, very interesting to play. The second hero class that came out is the Demon Hunter, and the Demon Hunters can only be Night Elves. They can be Blood Elves if you're Horde. And in this pre-patch, you're going to be able to unlock the combination of Void Elf with Demon Hunters, and I can't wait to unlock it just to try it out, just to see if I like it. So you're probably wondering, what does Alliance and Horde mean? Well, that was very meaningful years ago when the Alliance and the Horde are opposite sides of a war. Picking a side probably lets you see that these races are less monstrous, and the Horde races are more like orcs, undeads, taurens, and it's more like, I'd say that lore wise, they have very big differences, but like in game, you can play with both factions in a group, and that doesn't matter too much. What matters is PvP. When you PvP, you're normally going to be against the Horde of your alliance or vice versa. But there are some battlegrounds where you can't find enough Horde players to play, so you're going to see some alliance players like with a mask of an orc or a tauren or an undead playing for the Horde side. So I would say that it doesn't really matter right now. Maybe in future expansions, they're going to make that difference a little bit more relevant. But as far as I'm concerned, you could just pick whatever you want. But one advice that I'm going to give you, and this is very honest advice, check the population of the realm in which you're going to play. For example, I play in the Storm Rage realm, and that is mostly Alliance population. So what that means is when I go to the trade chat, when I try to talk to people, there's going to be a lot more Alliance players. There's like a 90% Alliance player population, and then there's like a very small amount of Horde population. So the bad side of it is that whenever you want to get something crafted, when you want to like make a group manually, like through the chat, or maybe you want to sell some stuff through the chat of the trade, you're not going to see a lot of answers. And I tell you from experience, I've tried playing as an Alliance character in a Horde server, and I always had to be like spamming messages on the trade chat just to see if anyone wanted to hire my services of a blacksmith. So I really recommend you to check out the population of the servers before starting. Now, once you choose your class race combo, you just get into it. You just, customize it as much as you want. You choose a name. I'm just gonna, randomize a name and an appearance, and then you hit next, and you're offered this choice: the Exile's Reach, which is the newest experience for new players. It's basically like a scenario, like a very specific tutorial to help you get through the game more easily. And the other option is the Northshire Valley, which is like the old school option to get started, and you get put into the world and you could just go wherever, because when you join the Exile's Reach, you're in like an instanced version of the world, and you have to finish that scenario in order to join the normal world. So I would recommend you to try out both. They're pretty easy. Like the Exile's Reach is pretty easy, and with the Northshire Valley, the quests are the same as in the Cataclysm expansion, if I'm not mistaken. And they were revamped. They're pretty decent. They're pretty fast. You're gonna level up really, really fast compared to back in the day. So I'm not gonna spoil the experience for you. I'm just gonna log into my Pally and I'm gonna show you how the interface looks after I configure and get everything set up. I'm probably gonna run an instance or something to show you a little bit of what you're gonna do during the end game. Okay, so we're in, and this is kind of like how every patch is going to welcome you when you log into the game. There are new features coming, and every major patch, of course, like this one. This is a pre-patch for the upcoming expansion Midnight. So basically, the game just tells you that they reset your talents because there's a new expansion, new changes, and new overhauls, and they tell you what's new. So they basically show you the new quest lines that are available, and in this case, there's a new spec for the Demon Hunter class, which is called the Devourer. And you have to do a quest in order to unlock the Void Elves Demon Hunter combo, like class race combo. And that's pretty fun. So I really recommend you guys to give it a shot. It's new spec for this class, and you might be really good at it, or it might be really appealing for you because it's visually astonishing. So you also have like some neighborhood news. I don't know if you're into housing, but basically you can go live in a neighborhood and build a house and collect some items to decorate it. That's a pretty fun part of the game now. And you have a new quest line. This is kind of like the pre-patch way of showing you how the story is going to move on towards midnight. So that is called Twilight Ascension. Basically, midnight is all about the void forces invading Azeroth, and there are cultists that are already working to cause that apocalypse or whatever, that void invasion that's coming. So this is my first time logging into the pre-patch officially, and the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to use one of the mounts that I have for the transfiguration. Of course, you can change your appearances somewhere else, but I'm just going to click here. This system was completely redesigned, so basically what you can do is you can use sets to just change all of the appearance of all of your gear, or you can just have different presets like I do. Maybe I think this is the ones that I already had. This is the one that I had before. I really like. Yeah, you can basically use situations to kind of like, if you're in the city, you can have a transmog, but if you get into a raid or in an instance, you automatically change appearances without having to do that manually. And I really appreciate that. And I'm probably going to spend some time configuring this, but the first thing that I want to see before I really get started in this pre-patch is the new add-ons or whatever, because I have my damage meter here, but this is called details. This is add-ons are something that the game is kind of trying to reduce right now, because there are some aspects of the game that you couldn't see with the UI of the game, like how much damage you dealt or how much healing you dealt. So third-party software called add-ons came out like since always. Basically, Blizzard is just trying to create their own versions of those add-ons and include them in the base game UI. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try to deactivate those add-ons, and I'm going to try to configure. Yeah, DBM is one of the most important add-ons because it lets you know when things happen in encounters. It has timers, it has alerts, and basically if you play WoW, you needed this. And now Blizzard just came up with their own version of this add-on. Also, the damage meter and the weak auras. I don't see the weak auras present here. Weak auras was a very important add-on for a long time because it let you see when the spells were available and what procs, like what abilities are available and what effects are on you at what particular moment. And if an effect was activated, then you could cast a skill or do something. And that is just gone. So I'm just going to disable all of them because I don't know what works and what doesn't. So I'm just going to reload my UI without any of them. And I want to basically, everyone has their transmog mount on. They're just configuring their appearances. The patch has been active for 8 minutes and they're already like going for it. So I want to go to the edit mode, and I just want to see if anything changed. My UI looks the same, but I want to figure out where the new add-ons are. So I'm going to go to options. So there are gameplay enhancements. I guess that is the, yeah, boss warnings. I guess that's the new DBM or deadly boss mods. So I want to enable text warnings. Yeah, so I'll basically just try out different combinations of configurations, and I'll just figure out what's more comfortable for me. I'm just gonna leave this like this. Nameplates are also new. I don't know if I have to configure something, but apparently they show a lot more stuff, which is a very welcome change. I'm going to just increase their size a little bit. There's an audio assist, but I don't see anything to configure here. About the interface, I just want to type in damage. Enable damage meter. There we go. That's the native damage meter. So that's in gameplay enhancements. Yes, I probably have to just go down. I don't know what this is, but I'm just going to activate it. I don't know if that's... Yeah, so I can configure the damage meter to damage done, DPS, damage taken, avoidable damage taken, healing, actions. This is such a good change. Like, you have no idea. I'm just gonna like make it a little bit bigger here. And I can see that this is like the defensives. I don't know if these are buffs or what, but I'm just gonna leave them there for the moment. And yeah, I'll probably just move the party frames. I don't know if I can. Yeah, I want a horizontal layout, and I'll probably have them like right here. And the template, I don't know if buff focused is best or debuff focused. Since I'm going to be a healer this expansion, this pre-patch, I'm probably going to just leave it like that. Maybe I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So about the rate frames are going to be probably like right here as well. And, you know, if there's 40 people, this is going to be kind of like very, very invasive, probably. I'm just going to put the auras right here. And I don't know if I should move this. Yeah, no, this is amazing. I'm just going to leave it there just for now, because I don't know if I'm going to be part of a 40 people rate just now, but yeah. It's going to be it for now. So as you get started in the game and your max level, you're going to want to choose the kind of role that you want to be playing, and you can choose between three. Basically, you can be a damage dealer, you can be a tank, or you can be a healer. And basically, what that means is the responsibilities that you have in a group or in a particular activity, whether it's PvE, that means player versus environment, or PvP, player versus player. So basically, tanks and healers have the most responsibility. They're the scarcest role, but also the most sought out role. So you're always going to get a group really, really fast. DPSs are more common because there are some classes that can only be DPSs. There are classes that can be tanks and DPSs. There are classes that can be healers and DPSs. And in the case of Paladin, my favorite class, you can be all three. And I'm going to show you right now. You can be Holy, Protection, or Retribution, the three roles. And I played all three, and I want to focus on Holy this upcoming expansion because I had never tried healing, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I understand that the game is probably a little bit easier right now, so I'm going to try to push for harder content. So I want to tell you a little bit about what you're going to be doing. I'm not going to spoil the leveling experience because you should go through it on your own. But what I can tell you is that as you're leveling, you're going to, every level that you gain, you're going to have talents to spend in your talent tree. So you're going to choose your role, and then you're going to be able to activate it. And you just go to the talent tree, and you're going to have 3 talent trees. You're going to have 1 for the class. This talent tree is the same for Protection, Holy, and Retribution. You have your specific spec tree. You can see it right there. It says Holy. And you have something that I really appreciate, which is the hero talents. The hero talents is a feature that they introduced in the War Within, and it's an amazing feature because you always have two options of hero talents, and that really customizes your playstyle. So even if you have two holy paladins, they could be very different because they have different hero talents. But realistically, there's always going to be a build that's better than the other, so you're not going to see that much variety. But it's fun that, as patches come and go, the best specs keep changing, so that lets you try out new options. So as you're leveling, you're not going to pay too much attention to this, but when you get to max level, you're probably going to want to go to pages like Wowhead, which is the most popular. You're just going to go to the page and find out what the most effective builds are, and you're going to get the most potential out of your class. Not a lot of people take the time to read the abilities, but I'm probably going to do it because it's the day of the pre-patch and I haven't read this in advance. So I'll probably just have fun with it and just try to make it on my own. But for you new players, I recommend you to just copy paste one of the builds. You could do so by coming to this drop down menu and you just hit import. You just copy paste the link or the code that the page is going to generate. You just assign a name to the loadout and then you're done. You have loadouts to choose from. All of my loadouts are probably gonna have to be reset because today, every talent tree was reset because every talent changed. Yeah, that's what you can expect. As you're leveling, you can use the dungeon finder tool. That is going to be crucial for you. As a new player, you're basically going to be able to queue in random dungeons, which is just instanced content. You're just going to be in a little part of the world, like an instance of the world where you are going to be able to kill enemies and get rewards. You can raise that difficulty to heroic dungeons, and you have the time walking events, which provide a little bit more experience. So for those of you who are leveling up during those events, I highly recommend you to try them out. So after you level up, you're going to be able to go to the raid finder, and the raid finder basically lets you go into bigger instances called raids, and raids can be between 10 and 30 people, if I'm not mistaken. And they're very fun, and raid finder versions are a lot easier than the normal ones and the heroic ones. But eventually you're going to want to, raise the difficulty to get better rewards as you get more skilled with your class. So you could just go to the pre-made group tab and you just go to the raids and you just find a group and you just filter them. You could just type in normal and then you're going to see all the normal raids. You can type in heroic and you're going to see the heroic raids, and you could just queue for whatever you want and you're going to get invited depending on the roles. You can see the amount of roles that they have here, the amount of people that they have for each role, and you can decide if you're going to queue on that or not. You just sign up, you choose your role, and they decide if they want to invite you based on your experience, based on the amount of gear that you have, based on any other useful and relevant thing. So if you're not into raiding and you're more into like smaller content, I could suggest Mythic Plus, which is a system that has made the World of Warcraft very popular lately. And when I say lately, I mean like the previous like 2 or 3 expansions. Basically, you can do dungeons that can scale up the difficulty infinitely. You can do them in normal, heroic, or then you set them to mythic and then you use a key. And keys basically give more power, more health, more damage to the creatures inside the dungeon, and they give you better rewards. So you can scale up to +2, +3, +4, etc. And then you just go and you just filter them by, Mythic Plus. I could filter them. I could just remove the normal, heroic, and mythic, and I just want to see Mythic Plus. So I would refresh this, and I'll see the number. +2 is like the most basic Mythic Plus dungeon difficulty. And as you do them and you time them, because they have a specific amount of time to complete them, if you complete them before the time runs out, then you can level up your key. Then you have a key that is a +2 key to a +3 key, and then you basically just start pushing your key. That's what they call it. And the harder the key that you do, the better the rewards. I'd say that this is one of the most fun activities in WoW right now, because you can always have content that will challenge you. There's never going to be a point when it's too easy, because you can always level up your key and do it in a harder way, and it's going to have affixes. The bosses are going to have more health, they're going to do more damage. It's very fun overall. So basically that is what you can do once you get to the end game. There's also delves. Delves are a great piece of content, and you could potentially solo them, and you could just go to the map if you press the M key, and you could see these icons that are an entrance, to a dungeon. But this is not a dungeon, this is a delve. And you could see that there are some delves that are like shiny and active. That means that they have additional loot. There are world activities like quests. I suggest that when you're new to the game, you just do them all. You're gonna see in Dornagal, which is the main hub of this expansion, you're gonna see these blue icons that just represent like a weekly mission, weekly quest that you can do, and it's probably going to give you good enough rewards to get you started on your journey. And then you can just go to delves and just clear them. It's just dungeons that you can do like alone or up to 5 people. When there's a weekly reset on Tuesday and these quests are given to you again, I always do the delves because they give great loot for beginners, and when you're gearing up characters, especially when you have alts. Remember, this game right now is designed in such a way that lets you have alts more comfortably. Alts are like secondary characters. You have your main character. In this case, my paladin is going to be my main this expansion, but I could have like a death knight, or I could have a warrior, and I could play them like in a secondary capacity. Like when I finish all my activities with my paladin, or when I'm tired playing with my paladin, I'm just gonna go hop into some other character. So that's always fun. I recommend you to have like 2 or 3. In later videos, I'm gonna explain the whole profession system and how it's changed, and the things you have to learn before midnight, and as a new player, how you can get started and really take advantage of that system during the next expansion. Like, I would say that it's very complicated to start doing this at the middle of an expansion, or especially at the end of an expansion. There's no point in you leveling up a profession this late into the game, but if you learn the system right now, you're going to be way ahead of everyone else when the new expansion starts, because not a lot of people level up professions and really take advantage of all the benefits that it gives you. So I am very excited to give this a shot, and I'll probably add some gameplay when I'm done editing everything and configuring my interface. I'm just gonna give it a shot without add-ons to see how the game has improved in that sense, like if it's enough, or if I feel like I still need some other add-ons to see any other aspects of the game. But yeah, we'll figure that out together. So I'm here practicing my rotation for healing, although there are not a lot of buttons left, so it's not going to be that difficult. But one thing I will say is I don't know how good I'm going to be without the Voodoo add-on. I say this because Voodoo actually let you use different unit frames that were bound to spell cast through clicks. Basically, you used left click, that was a particular spell. Maybe you used right click or shift left click or shift right click, and so on and so forth. All of them were spells, and it was very convenient because you could use your buttons for offensive spells and then use your clicks for healing spells. But now I'm just gonna have to use the default unit frames. Let's see how it goes. So for those who are new to the game, I'm going to show you a little bit of the gameplay of a Mythic Plus dungeon that I ran yesterday, and this dungeon was particularly hard for me for 2 main reasons. The first one is the lack of add-ons. Basically, I've been playing the game for so long with add-ons that I'm very used to receiving the information in a very particular way, and also casting my spells in a particular way. Because with the add-ons like Voodoo, I could just bind all of my spells to my clicks. So normally it's fine, but in moments of emergency, like, my muscle memory goes to that keybind. So I've been having a hard time getting used to it, but I think it's a matter of time. The second problem, and I think this is pretty solvable, is that the Blizzard UI is so new that there are so many configurations that you have to manually go to and change. So I was having a lot of problems with debuffs, and later I discovered that there's a better way to configure them. Basically, whenever a teammate gets a negative effect, healers can probably remove it. They can't remove every negative effect, but they could remove most of them. So I had it configured in such a way that it showed me every debuff that someone could get. And I tried to dispel them, but I couldn't because that was a debuff that I couldn't dispel as a holy paladin. So I had to configure it to let the unit frame show me debuffs that only I can dispel or that I can dispel, because if someone else can dispel it, I don't want to see it. There's no point. I don't need that information in such a way. So after configuring it, I'm going to give it another shot, and it's probably going to be easier the more I do it, but the UI is beautiful. I think it's more simple, and I think this is a change that the game desperately needed. And I hope to see more positive changes, coming into Midnight. For now, that's all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon.